the building fuse.
Hey guys, Operator Drewski here, and today we are talking about Battlefield 1. There have been a lot of changes since the big beta that came out, and a lot of people played that. There was, I think, a tweet by Battlefield that pretty much told you about just how many kills were done during the beta, how many people joined the beta, like millions of people joined the beta. It was, I think, the biggest recorded beta in terms of Electronic Arts games so far. So it was extremely popular, and they definitely had a lot of success with it, and they got a lot of feedback. With that many people playing, you're definitely going to get a lot of feedback about the beta, especially when those very helpful community members are really giving good feedback in terms of discussions, podcasts, and such. EA DICE has definitely listened to us, and they have done a lot of big changes. So first off, the most important one, in my opinion, was the Conquest game modes change in Battlefield 1's beta. So originally, you would get both I guess the points you would get for your team were both brought up by kills you got and how many objectives you were holding. So you pretty much, bled the enemy team's tickets by either holding objectives, or you took one ticket per kill you did from the enemy team, unless that person got revived every time you killed a person. So it was a very kind of, I guess, balanced and adaptable mode, where you could either capture all the objectives and try to hold more objectives than the other team, or you could get more kills than the other team, and you could win either way. It kind of just was a balance of those two parameters. But now, in Battlefield 1 beta, they changed that to just capping objectives, so kills did not matter anymore. So pretty much gameplay of people who know how the game mode worked, they could pretty much just win the team, or win for the game, by just running and doing suicide runs into objectives. And this wasn't really a good idea, because you could die as many times as you wanted to, but you would still win the game because you capped so many objectives. So people were just mad running, or I guess only experienced players that really knew what was going on about the changes were just madly rushing in objectives and taking them without really worrying for their life. In normal Battlefield game modes, you have to worry for your life, because every single life counts one ticket out of those, let's say 500 tickets out of your team's score. So if you died 20 times, then that's pretty bad, because that's 20 out of 500 tickets, and you've got to divide those tickets by 64 to really, or by 32, I guess, to really know how many you can take effectively before you start really losing for your team. So now people will actually have to care for their lives, because it's the original Battlefield game mode again. It's Conquest, where both taking objectives and getting kills will both contribute towards the final score of the game. So also, we've had some different balancing things other than just the Conquest game mode. As we all know, especially from my channel where I had tons and tons of footage of the light tank, I'm probably using some in the background. I'm very sorry, but I didn't really get much footage other than that. I was just getting demolished all the time. But in the light tank, it is getting a nerf, which is very good. That was definitely well needed. A lot of people were super controversial about if the tank needed a buff, but I was getting like 45 and 0s, and I even got a 60 and 0 by the end of the beta, and I was definitely thinking to myself, this is definitely overpowered. It's not like I'm an extremely skilled player, but I'm still getting 60 and 0. That is just absolutely, like, absolutely stupid. But also, the horses are getting a slight nerf as well in terms of their health. I mean, you could snipe a horse like 5 times and it would not go down. I would honestly expect if you shot a horse with a pistol, it would probably fall to the ground in pain if you shot. This is too far, but I know. But if we're getting into realism here, at any point in time, the horses were a slightly bit too powerful, because people would shoot at the horses with big machine guns, and the horses just wouldn't die. They wouldn't fall down, and the person would just be able to run away on a perfectly healed horse, and over time the horse would heal and the person would heal, and they'd both be happy little fellows. But now that has changed for the better. Overall, horses' health will be a little bit less. Also, there's some news about the new system requirements. The minimum specs and the recommended specs has come out, and I'm going to be talking about that right now. And this is actually pretty crazy. I'm actually surprised about how high the minimum requirements are for this game. The minimum processor is an i5-6600K, which honestly, not a lot of people have a processor that powerful. That is actually a pretty dang powerful processor, and I honestly recommend that for a lot of gamers out there that are getting gaming PCs. But it looks like the CPU usage in Battlefield 1 was actually very high. As I played it on my 4770K, it did actually use a good bit of the CPU. Therefore, streaming the game, my frame rate was really low, because my old streaming setup used a lot of CPU power, And a lot of games I can run perfectly fine, but in games that use a lot of processor, they definitely take a big hit in terms of performance whenever I'm streaming. And I definitely noticed that in the Battlefield 1 beta, where the CPU usage was a little bit higher than usual games do. And it was using a lot more power to, I guess, process all the stuff that's happening. Now, it is a Battlefield game, so there is a ton of stuff happening, but I guess there's a lot more happening in the Battlefield 1 game than there was in Battlefield 4 or Battlefield 3, where there was, you know, just simpler game modes happening. Now, it requires you a i5-6600K, so that is a pretty powerful processor. The minimum recommended, or minimum memory is 8 gigabytes of RAM. The minimum graphics card is either an HD 750 2GB or a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 660, which is actually pretty low. I was like, oh, okay, that's perfectly fine. I actually thought that was actually lower than I thought it was going to be. I thought the minimum graphics card would be something like a 750 Ti, but it ended up being a 662 gigabyte. Well, the processor was a pretty high, powerful i5-6600K, which is pretty cool. The recommended settings or recommended specs for your PC are either an AMD FX 8350 or an i7-4790, which is pretty dang crazy. Recommended having an i7 quad core. I mean, I would definitely recommend that for gaming as well, but still, that is pretty powerful of a processor right there. You also have 16 gigabytes of RAM for recommended specs. You also get a 480 4GB graphics card or a 1060 3GB, so that's pretty much a 1050. So that is the recommended and minimum specs. I honestly think that that's pretty good. We've definitely made a jump from having to make these games optimized for things like the Xbox 360 system, because this is the first Battlefield game, I think, that isn't on Xbox 360 or on PS3, and so the games have a lot more, I guess, headroom to go to in terms of performance and looks and terms of, usage of power in systems. So consoles are definitely in the next gen now, so they have to, kind of go a little bit back for the consoles. I think a lot of people said to me that the Xbox One and the PS4 had a lot lesser graphics than the PC version did in the beta. I think that might just be because it's a beta, by the way. I'm not really sure. But overall, consoles are less powerful than the most powerful PCs, so they will always have to adapt for the lower power of the consoles, which isn't terrible, but it still is a little bit lower powered. So having these minimum specs be an i5-6600K and having the GTX 660 is what I would actually say is a pretty equivalent parts to a console. The processor's a little bit more powerful, but the GTX 660 all the way up to a 750 is around where a console's GPU is located in terms of power and pricing. So that is where I would say a console would be, but the processor is actually pretty high for the minimum requirements. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Just wanted to talk about some more Battlefield 1 today, because the Battlefield 1 release is pretty soon. It's actually late October, so it's coming up pretty quick. We've waited for a long time since those trailers came out, and I'm super excited to show you guys a lot more gameplay when it comes out. But thanks to you guys for watching today. Hit that like button if you liked the video. Hit that dislike button if you dislike it, and I will see you guys next time. Stay frosty.